The Misadventures of a Hidden World. Book 1, Lore Recap, full storytelling version. Chicago never sleeps. Not really. The trains still rattle through the South Side at 2 in the morning. Sirens still bounce between apartment buildings. Neon signs still flicker above corner stores that should have closed years ago. Wind still tears through alleyways hard enough to make the city feel alive. But underneath all of that, something older was waking up. And it started with a 17-year-old kid named Rath Van Ellis. Rath wasn't a hero. He wasn't chosen by destiny. He wasn't noble. He was angry. The kind of angry that settles into your bones after years of fighting people, fighting school, fighting grief, and fighting yourself. The kind of anger that turns your fists into weapons before your brain even catches up. His father, Marcus Van Ellis, died in Iraq back in 2003. At least, that's what the official story said. IED explosion, military funeral, folded flag. End of story. But Marcus left something behind before he died. A black stone necklace. Smooth, cold, strange. Nobody else could touch it for long without feeling sick. Some people got headaches, some got nosebleeds. One guy passed out cold after grabbing it at a party. But Rath wore it every day like it belonged to him. Because it did. What Rath didn't know was that the necklace wasn't jewelry. It was a key. And somewhere beyond Earth, something ancient had been waiting for that key to turn. Now, if Rath was chaos, then Kenji Nomura was discipline. Kenji fought clean. Martial arts, structure, precision. He was the guy teachers liked and students avoided. Calm voice, sharp stare, the type of dude who could break your nose and still tell you to have a nice day afterward. And on March 12th, 2018, those two ended up fighting again. Chicago winds screaming through an empty lot. Bloody knuckles, cracked pavement, trash blowing through the street like tumbleweeds, Rath laughing through split lips. Kenji annoyed as usual, and then the city exploded. Not metaphorically. Literally. A power substation detonated 2 blocks away. The sky flashed blue, cars swerved, transformers burst, and then lightning hit Rath directly. Only, he didn't die. The world stopped. For a second, the electricity turned black-violet. Shadows climbed up Rath's arms like living creatures. The necklace cracked open, not breaking, opening. And inside Rath's mind, the static he'd heard his whole life disappeared. A voice replaced it. Ancient. Amused. Finally. That was the moment everything changed. Because Rath didn't just survive lightning. He awakened something tied to the Shadowland. A realm controlled by Berserk. Now, Berserk wasn't a demon in the traditional sense. He was older than that. Something fallen. Something corrupted by ambition and wrath so severe that it created an entirely separate dimension built from greed, violence, and hunger. And for centuries, Berserk had been searching for someone capable of carrying his power. Wrath was supposed to become that weapon. But things didn't go according to plan, because Wrath enjoyed the chaos too much. That's what made him dangerous. Most people fear power. Wrath laughed at it. When the first creatures crawled from the smoke after the explosion, normal people ran. Wrath smiled. Tall creatures with broken limbs and mouths stretched too wide stepped through burning alleyways while black blood dripped onto Chicago asphalt, and Wrath attacked them head-on. That's when everyone realized the shadows obeyed him. Not perfectly, not safely, but instinctively. Tendrils burst from his body. Black-violet energy tore through demons. Concrete cracked beneath his feet. Every battle made the shadows stronger. And standing nearby, watching all this happen, was Bartholomew Wentz. Bart, the sarcastic note-taking observer who looked like he accidentally wandered into the apocalypse halfway through somebody else's anime. At first, Bart was comic relief, panicking, writing notes, hiding behind dumpsters while Wrath fought monsters in the middle of Chicago streets. But Bart was always paying attention. That mattered later. Katie Johnson entered the chaos next. Unlike Wrath and Bart, Katie represented reality, fear, survival, humanity. She wasn't obsessed with power. She wasn't fascinated by darkness. She just wanted everyone alive long enough to see tomorrow. But tomorrow kept getting worse. Because the more Wrath fought, the more Berserk noticed him. Soon Wrath learned the truth. His father Marcus hadn't simply died in war. Berserk orchestrated it. The necklace wasn't an accident. Wrath inherited a war older than humanity itself, and the enemies coming after him weren't random monsters. They were pieces of Berserk's hierarchy, the 6 generals: knowledge, wisdom, understanding, love, life, loyalty. Each represented part of Berserk's control over humanity, each terrifying in different ways. The first major general Wrath encountered was knowledge. Cold, precise, analytical. Knowledge wasn't trying to destroy Wrath immediately. He was studying him, testing him. That's what made those early fights horrifying. Every battle taught Wrath something new about the shadows. The shadows could reshape, absorb energy, form armor, create wings, become blades, react independently. They were alive, and they fed on emotion, especially rage. Every time Wrath got angrier, the shadows evolved faster. That's why the fights escalated so violently. Chicago became a battlefield, entire blocks destroyed. Streetlights ripped apart, citizens fleeing neighborhoods, news helicopters disappearing from radar, and through all of it, Wrath kept joking. That became part of his identity. The darker things got, the funnier he acted, like his brain refused to process fear normally. But underneath the jokes, Wrath was changing. The shadows weren't just powers anymore. They were becoming part of his body. Then came one of the biggest moments in Book 1, the sword. During battle, the black stone necklace finally revealed its true form. It split open and transformed into a black-violet blade infused with Marcus Van Ellis's legacy. At the same time, shadow armor formed around Wrath's body. Not random armor. Living armor. Responsive armor. The suit evolved during combat alongside him. That moment changed the scale of the story completely. Wrath stopped being a kid surviving monsters. Now he looked like a walking catastrophe. And Berserk realized something dangerous. Wrath was evolving too fast. Even worse, he wasn't fully controllable. That's when Berserk escalated the game. More generals appeared. Wisdom, understanding, love. Each attack became more strategic, more psychological. The fights weren't just physical anymore. They became emotional warfare. And while all of this happened, Bart was still watching, learning, absorbing. See, Bart never had Wrath's raw power, but he had intelligence, patience, curiosity, and slowly, darkness started speaking to him too. The shadows rewarded observation, knowledge, understanding, adaptation. Bart began realizing something horrifying. Power didn't belong exclusively to Wrath. And if Wrath could evolve, why couldn't he? That idea poisoned him completely. Then came the betrayal, one of the defining moments of Book 1. During a massive confrontation against the general's understanding and love, Wrath believed he finally had control of the situation. But Bart stepped forward, and everything changed. He intercepted the fight, took control of the shadows, and revealed that Berserk had been manipulating him from the background for a long time. Bart wasn't corrupted accidentally. He chose power. That's important. He willingly embraced Berserk's hierarchy because he was tired of being weak, tired of observing, tired of hiding behind dumpsters while Wrath became something larger than life. So when Wrath killed the original knowledge, Bart inherited the title. He became the new knowledge, not loyalty, knowledge, because Bart's greatest weapon was never strength, it was understanding. That betrayal shattered the group. Katie was devastated, Wrath was furious, and Bart felt liberated. For the first time in his life, he mattered. But Berserk still had one final reveal waiting. Kenji Nomura, Wrath's rival, the disciplined fighter from the beginning, the guy who always seemed strangely composed around chaos. Kenji wasn't just another fighter, he was Berserk's son. Not metaphorically, literally. That revelation reframed everything. Kenji's precision, his unnatural calm, his ability to adapt against Wrath, all of it came from Berserk's bloodline. And unlike Wrath, Kenji fully embraced what he was. No hesitation, no moral conflict, just purpose. The ending of Book 1 turns Chicago into complete war. Bart fully evil, Kenji revealed, the Six active, citizens trapped between supernatural destruction and collapsing infrastructure, and Wrath standing in the middle of it all, trying to figure out whether he was becoming humanity's protector or its next disaster. But the most important part of the lore comes after all of that. Because later, Wrath dies, and lightning brings him back. That resurrection changes the entire mythology. The shadows no longer define him completely. He becomes something else. Pure lightning energy reborn through death itself. Not holy, not divine, not a saint. An anomaly. A contradiction to Berserk's system, which means the war stops being about shadows alone. Now it becomes evolution versus destiny, control versus freedom, inheritance versus identity. And that's the real heart of the misadventures of a hidden world. Not good versus evil, Not heroes versus villains, but broken people trying to survive powers larger than themselves while cities burn around them. Some laugh, some betray, some evolve, and some become monsters willingly. But every choice matters. Every action creates consequences. And Chicago was only the